Hi, everybody. It's 12 on the dot Central Time, of course. So thanks for those of you who joined us from wherever you might be in Nebraska. Megan Peel and I are your trainers today, and it looks like we've got a slightly smaller group. So I look forward to giving you the chance to ask any questions you have at the completion of today's training. Where's my mouse? There we go. Come on, computer. Oh my goodness, Megan, why is it not working? Here we go. There, that should be it. Yeah, just to make sure you're in the right place. This is the verification report training. Today is not November 4th, it's November 13th, but we did offer this training on November 4th. So I left that there on purpose to remind me to tell you that if you are here for the November 4th training, this is a repeat of that same information. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel like you have to because we're not sharing anything new or different today compared to what we shared the previous time we offered this. So this training focuses on helping you complete the data fields that are required in the verification report, which of course is an annual requirement that all schools and organizations participating in the school nutrition program are required to complete. The state agencies that have agreements with schools and organizations to participate in the National School Lunch Program aggregate the data submitted by participating schools and organizations, and then submit that to the National Office of the USDA. So the information you provide is, of course, important and very useful and evaluated quite closely at the National Office. Megan and I have had close contact with National Office data evaluators over the years, and you may have heard from us in our work to correct or clean up data that we've received in the verification report. So that's one of the reasons we're offering this opportunity and this training for you today. We want to make sure that what you submit the first time is accurate, correct, and would help prevent us from having to follow up with you later. So thanks again for making the time to be here today. Most of you probably saw the housekeeping slide that I displayed as you joined the Zoom meeting. Of course, we want you to provide your full name, the name of your school, and your email address. Those pieces of information help ensure that we can provide you with a certificate for today's training. We also want you to mute your microphone, please, just during this time that I am presenting the training slides. It just helps make sure things are less disruptive for the other learners or participants in today's training. We will email you the training certificate for your attendance. And then today's training will be recorded and posted to the Nutrition Services website by Monday, November 17th. And of course, we do allocate time for questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to ask those through the chat, the Zoom chat, anytime you think of them. And Megan and I will go through those at the end, but we also want you to feel free to unmute your microphone at the conclusion of the presentation and ask your question that way as well. You can choose whichever of those you prefer or are more comfortable with. So the agenda for today includes covering what school types are required to complete the annual verification report. We'll quickly cover some important due dates and deadlines surrounding verification and completion of the annual report. We'll cover how to access the annual report, and then we'll provide a lot of details and spend quite a bit of time going through the instructions for completing each of the sections. And we try to identify the special considerations that might exist among schools and organizations that are required to complete the report, including differentiating between pricing schools, residential childcare institutions, and non-pricing CEP or community eligibility provision schools, because those factors all have some influence on which sections might be skipped and special considerations for what data is included or needs to be reported in a few of those sections. So the school types that are required to complete the verification report include both public and non-public pricing schools, as well as public and non-public non-pricing schools that participate in the community eligibility provision, ESUs that serve meals to students during the school day at the ESU, as well as residential childcare institutions, also called RCCIs. So a couple of definitions I want to make sure that we clear up at the front or top of the training include differentiating between a pricing and a non-pricing school. So pricing school buildings are those where students have individual eligibility determinations, for example, free, reduced, and paid meal eligibility, and their meals are claimed in their individual student eligibility category. On the other hand, in Nebraska, non-pricing schools are those that participate in the community eligibility provision, where students who attend a school approved to provide no-cost meals to all students who eat meals during their school day. And those individual students' eligibility does not impact how that student's meals are claimed and reimbursed through the school nutrition programs. So CEP buildings allow all students attending school and eating meals within those buildings to receive a meal at no charge, and it's not in any way connected to their individual eligibility like it would be in a pricing or a traditional pricing school building where the meals are claimed and reimbursed at the free, reduced, and paid rates or in those categories. So a couple of important due dates and deadlines. Some of these have passed, of course, but I want to make sure we touch base on these. October 1st is the date at which the verification pool is determined. So applications selected to be verified or selected for verification are based on the total number of applications, excuse me, approved for free or reduced price meals as of October 1st of the current school year. And then October 31st happens to be the last operating day for most schools in Nebraska in the school year 2025-26. So you'll see that last operating day referenced in several places in the verification report. And if your school held school operated on Friday, October 31st, that's going to be the date at a point in time in which you're looking and aggregating numbers to include in some sections of the verification report. For 2025, November 17th, which is this upcoming Monday, is an important deadline. It is the due date for the submission of the verification report in the CNP system. The regulations state that it must be submitted by November 15th, but of course that is a weekend day this year, so it's the following business day, so it will be due November 17th. There is flexibility to allow it up to a 1-month deadline extension on submission of the report, and if your school needs to utilize additional time for up to that 1-month extension, please notify the NDE to receive approval of that extension. And you can do that by emailing Megan or me. Our email addresses are on the website or on the slide here. You can email both of us. Just make sure you receive confirmation that you've received and approve your additional time and a deadline extension of up to or out to December 17th, 2025. So after you've logged into the CNP system, you see a page displayed like this one for most of you anyway. Some may have to select the school nutrition programs, but most of you are going to be able to click on applications from the menu of options across the top, which I have a yellow box around. And then it will display a list of items. And from that, you will select the verification report, which in this picture is surrounded by the orange box. The next page, I think, displays a list of school years. And of course, you're completing and accessing the verification report for school year 25-26, which you'll select. And then at the top of the following page, you will see the general information displayed. And this is automatically populated or pre-filled from information that was in the most recent previous submitted verification report. So please review that information and make any necessary updates to the contact person and their contact information. This would be a staff member at your school who's responsible for completing the verification report and would be a good point of contact for us to reach out to should we have any questions. Section 1, right below that general information section, should be completed for all types of organizations, schools, or institutions that participate in the school nutrition programs. Both those pricing and non-pricing schools, as well as ESUs, will have automatically filled the box for 1-1 in column A. That value in the green box on the screen here is populated based on the number of approved site applications in the school year 25-26 application packet in the CNP system. So like I said, the green box will be populated by the system. It's your job to aggregate and report the total that goes under or in column B, held within the orange box you see on the screen. And this should be the report of the total number of students enrolled in your school district or your ESU as of that last operating day in October, which for most of you will be Friday, October 31st. Section 1, specific to those residential childcare institutions, will skip and not enter any information for row or question 1-1. Instead, we'll enter information in the 1-2 fields. The RCCIs with day students and with no day students is differentiated in the report. To my knowledge, the RCCIs in Nebraska are mostly, if not all, exclusively residential and have no day students. But the system will automatically populate the fields, the appropriate fields that you see enclosed in the green box. And then of course, it's the reporting person's responsibility to accurately report the number of students in each of the categories that you see in the orange box on the screen. For section 2, this will be completed by only school districts that have CEP schools. So no school should submit data in 2-1 or any of the questions for 2-2, including A and B. Schools in Nebraska also should not complete any information for question 2-4 or 2-5. Only districts with CEP buildings will submit data in section 2, and their data will be submitted for only question 2-3. So again, the system will populate the information in column A, which reports the number of schools and institutions approved to operate the CEP. And then the school data steward would be responsible for aggregating the correct number of students enrolled in those CEP buildings and reporting that value in column B for question 2-3. Moving on to section 3 and focusing on the community eligibility provision schools. For districts that have all of its buildings utilizing the CEP option, they need to mark the box in 3-1, and doing so will make the remainder of section 3 gray out. The values do not need to be reported in the remainder of section 3 if all students enrolled in a district receive no-cost meals because every building in the district participates in the community eligibility provision. Alternatively, for section 3, in buildings that do charge students for meals based on their individual eligibility, we call these pricing schools. That would also include ESUs. Only those need to report information in section 3 for questions 3-2, 3-3, and 3-4. For this, you're going to report values for only students who attend schools that utilize the traditional pricing program. So complete questions 3-2, both A and B for 3-3, as well as 3-4 to represent the students who attend a pricing building within your district. Okay. You also want to make sure that you include in these counts students who have received an extended benefit from a directly certified or matched student who attends a CEP building if you have a district with a mix of pricing and non-pricing CEP students. Let's pretend in an example that school A was a CEP school. The students attending the CEP school A will not be counted in any of the values reported in section 3. But if a student enrolled in school A, the CEP school, is on the direct certification match list for SNAP, that student won't be counted and included in the total for question 3-2. However, if they have a sibling or another enrolled student residing in the same household with them, that SNAP matches meal benefits extend to the student enrolled in another building that is not a CEP building, one that does the traditional free, reduced, and paid pricing method. That student's having the extended free meal benefit and attending a pricing school means they do need to be included in the total count reported in 3-2 or any of the applicable fields or categories in section 3. So I know that's a lot of details and can get a little bit confusing. If you have questions about that as you're working to complete the report, please don't hesitate to reach out to Megan or me. We're happy to help you on a case-by-case basis, but I'll repeat that just one more time. If a district has a mix of CEP, non-pricing, and pricing buildings, a CEP school student is directly certified and has another a student who lives in the same household as them who isn't themselves directly certified but can receive the extended meal benefit because of the directly certified student in the CEP school, that student who receives the extended meal benefit does need to be counted in the appropriate category from which that benefit was extended and then reported in section 3. So again, section 3 values should represent only students enrolled in the traditional pricing buildings, should not include students who are enrolled in a CEP non-pricing building. So this is a reiteration of that, right? Do not include those CEP students in your section 3 values. Of course, we encourage you to double and even triple check the accuracy of the data reported in section 3 if you are a district that has both pricing and non-pricing CEP buildings. That might mean you need to review your student information system or point of sale system and any reports or reporting that those systems generate, just to help make sure that what you're putting in that final verification report is accurate in terms of the values represented or reported in section 3. So for pricing buildings that operate the traditional free, reduced, and paid price meals, reporting those directly certified students means you need to identify the total number of directly certified students on the last operating day of October, and for most of us, that was Friday, October 31st. And remember, do not include students who are matched with a list date after the last operating day of October. Please also remember to remove students who are no longer enrolled as of the last operating day of October. They should not be included in the reporting in section 3 of the verification report. But do remember to include students who receive those extended benefits because they live with another student directly certified for SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, Medicaid free, or Medicaid reduced. So those students who receive meal benefits extended from a directly certified student should be counted and included in section 3 of the verification report. So just go over this one more time together, and then we can move on to the next section, which would be section 4. But just to summarize for section 3, you're reporting the students directly certified for SNAP who receive free meals because of that SNAP participation, as well as any other students who live with a student directly certified for SNAP and have that extended meal benefit. In that, both of those are reported in section or in question 3-2. In 3-3 and 3-4, those other direct certification qualifying programs include Medicaid free, TANF, FDPIR, and Medicaid reduced, which you can see are all identified in green. And we've done that to help make sure you know that students directly certified for those 4 programs, as well as for SNAP, can have that meal benefit extended to other children or students who live in the same household. And that means those additional benefit extensions should be counted in the totals reported in Section 3. On the other hand, you see some benefit programs in red text. Those include migrant, foster, and homeless. They're in red as a cue to stop, right? Don't extend benefits from those students to others who may live in the same household. Those types of direct certification matches do not extend to other children in the household. The benefit extension occurs only with those identified in green text, right? Medicaid free, Medicaid reduced, SNAP, TANF, and FDPIR. But stop, do not extend benefits to other children in a household for a student who you see is directly certified or matched for migrant, foster, or homeless. And then, of course, we're going to aggregate this information and report them in the appropriate questions or categories in Section 3. This is one more reminder to please check your values. For 3-3A, you're including those students directly certified for Medicaid free, as well as any other students who live with that student or a student directly certified for Medicaid free. In 3-3B, you're aggregating the students directly certified for TANF and FDPIR, along with any other students who may live with a student matched for TANF or FDPIR, plus those students who are identified as foster, migrant, or homeless. And finally, in 3-4, you're reporting the students directly certified for Medicaid reduced, as well as any other students who might live with that student that was directly certified for Medicaid reduced. So we've got a few frequently asked questions that we hope will address some of the questions that you might have as you complete the verification report. This first one says, our school utilizes free, reduced, and paid meal pricing and is required to do direct certification for meal benefits, as all schools are, but we didn't have any students matched or identified in the direct certification list. Should I complete Section 3, where we report directly certified students? The answer is yes. You must still leave question 3-1 unchecked because you're a pricing school, not a CEP school, and enter zeros for Section 3's questions if you truly had no students directly certified for meal benefits through SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, Medicaid free or reduced, or migrant, foster, or homeless. And to reiterate something I know we talked about on the previous slide, the next question asks, should students who receive extended benefits be counted and included in Section 3? And as we went over, of course, the answer to that is yes, for those programs from which benefits can be extended, which are the green ones identified on the slide here. Continuing our FAQ, we have an example. A household completed an application for meal benefits in August, and it was approved for reduced price meals. Coincidentally, this application was selected for verification, and the letter was sent to the household requesting that they submit that supporting or verifying information about what they put on that application for meal benefits. After that letter was sent to the household, the student on the application for meal benefits appeared as a direct certification match for Medicaid reduced. What do you do with this, right? You have an application that was approved, but now the student is directly certified at the same type of meal benefit, both reduced price. Count this as a response, even if you do not receive supporting documentation or information from the household, and then report that student in Section 3. You do not also need to report that student in the section where you're reporting the number of students qualified or approved for a meal benefit based on an application, because now we have that meal certification or benefit issuance derived from direct certification. So that's where we want to record that student eligible for the reduced price meals. This is a similar question, but just a little bit different, or example, but just a little bit different. A household completed an application for meal benefits in August. It was approved for free meals. Coincidentally, again, this application was selected for verification, and the letter was sent to the household requesting that supporting documentation. After the letter was sent to the household, the student appeared as a Medicaid reduced match on the direct certification list. What to do with this one, right? It's a little bit different. The benefit determination on the application is different from the benefit identified through direct certification. So for this one, the benefit on the application is greater than the benefit derived or identified through direct certification. So proceed with the verification process on the application that you received and processed at your school. If the verification process confirms the benefit identified on the application submitted to the school, then do not report that student in Section 3, where you report direct certification matches and students with meal benefits. You will instead report them in Sections 4 and 5, which is where schools report information about meal eligibility for students approved through the application process submitted to the school. So we've covered Section 3 in depth and hopefully answered some of the questions that you might have. Let's move on to Section 4, where schools with pricing meal programs, again, where their students qualify individually for free, reduced, and paid price meals, collect applications for meal benefits, and that means they must complete this section. So in this section, you see I've got 2 colored boxes and some colored text on the slide. For Section A, or questions in column A of Section 4, I've got a green box around those. And if you read the instructions in the smaller print right below the Section 4 heading, it reiterates what we have on the slide or conveys the message on the slide as well. Section A will include a report of the total applications the school received and approved for free or reduced price meal benefits according to the appropriate line or question here as of October 1st. So all the values that you would report in column A for questions 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3 will be representative of values as of October 1st. On the other hand, the items or the values reported in column B for the number of students should be reflective of the last operating day of October, which for most schools is going to be Friday, October 31st. So you're reporting values based on different days, the first day of that month of October compared to the last operating day of the month of October. So in Section 4, for schools that do not collect applications for meal benefits, which would include those districts that operate the community eligibility provision in all buildings, as well as RCCIs or residential childcare institutions that have only residential students and have no day students, they will not have values to report in Section 4. So the answers or values in questions 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3 will all be zeros because those schools and institutions do not collect applications for meal benefits. The meals provided to students enrolled in those schools and institutions are provided to them at no cost, regardless of their individual eligibility. So at the bottom of Section 4, you see the 2 total values. T-1 and T-2 should autofill or be determined by the system or by the report on its own. You do not need to and should not even be able to change the values you see in T1 and T2. Now, a couple of Section 4 frequently asked questions. The first one being, is conducting verification on applications for meal benefits required for my school or institution? The answer might be it depends, but it comes down to yes. If your school collects applications for meal benefits, then it must conduct verification on those approved applications. Similarly, but different, is the verification report required? And we covered this at the top of the training, but just want to make sure we go over it one more time. Yes, if your school or institution serves meals that are reimbursed through the school nutrition programs, you are required to complete the verification report, even if your school didn't receive any applications for meal benefits and or hasn't identified any students directly certified for meal benefits, it is still required to complete the verification report because your school or organization is participating in the school nutrition programs and providing meals to students through the program. Another question, do I need to report applications that exceed the income guidelines and identified students qualify for paid price meals? The answer to this is no. Those applications are not part of your verification pool. They would never be selected and submit a request to a household to provide information or documentation that supports what they wrote on the application because there was not a meal benefit derived from that application. So you're not going to include any information or data that would reflect these kinds of applications in the report. The verification report asks you to provide information only for students' households' applications from which a meal benefit was derived and then given to students. So this is a reiteration or sort of repeat of something I know we talked about earlier with a specific example we tried to give to help answer questions you might have. But a simple way to ask and answer this question is identified on the slide. What if a directly certified household or student also submits a meal application? What do I do with that? Where do I report that in the verification report? The answer depends, and there's probably two answers. Maybe there are more, but at least these two. If the application's determination was the same or less than the direct certification benefit, then the student's meal benefits should be recorded in section 3 about direct certification. If the application's determination was greater or better than the direct certification meal benefit, then the student's meal benefit and place where that's included in a total and reported in the verification report would belong in section 4, where we collect information about applications for meal benefits, and would not be reported in section 3. You're always picking one or the other. You definitely want to make effort to ensure that student values are not represented duplicatively or repeatedly or redundantly between sections 3 and 4. There's definitely separate ways of determining meal benefits, and we want to make sure we don't count students twice. So for section 5, specifically question 5-1, this box would be marked only by residential childcare institutions that have only residential students and by districts with CEP operating in all of its buildings. If you're an RCCI that has day students who receive meals through the school nutrition programs, and if you're a district that has a pricing program in any or all of its buildings, you are not going to mark the box in question 5-1. For question 5-2, you're simply going to make the selection that's appropriate for your school. And you'll know verification is complete when one of the 3 things identified on this slide have happened. The household or households you've selected for verification respond to the request, regardless of what they provide you, matching what they put on the application, but they do provide you with something. It's either a message or a phone call or a letter that says, I'm not providing you that information. You change their meal benefit to paid, or they do provide you with that income verification information. And either it affirms what was originally approved or it doesn't, it still counts as a response that indicates verification was complete. You can also say, as a school, you've completed the verification process by attempting to reach out to a household twice, at a minimum 2 times, to get information you need to conduct verification. Okay, if you don't reach out at all, or you send only the original notice to the household and never follow up, that's not completing the verification process. You have to try to contact the household at least twice to get a response to the request. In question 5-3, know that you will select the appropriate option based on an email notification that Megan Peel provided to your school telling you if you qualified to utilize the alternate 1 option or if your school was required to conduct the standard method of verification. And based on the makeup and type of schools in Nebraska, we should not have any schools that utilize alternate 2 option because our student population hasn't been large enough in some of the biggest districts that do mostly pricing to qualify for alternate 2. So you're going to mark either standard or alternate 1, and you can refer back to email communication you received from Megan on knowing which one of those you are prescribed to complete or have the option of completing, and then mark the appropriate option in 5-3. For question 5-4, you should report a total number of applications approved for free or reduced price meals that were identified as error prone, meaning the monthly income reported on that application was within $100 of the appropriate income guideline for the number of household members it had, or within $1,200 of the annual income guideline. So we also have a link here to the error-prone chart for school year 25-26 income guidelines. We'll put that in the chat before we end today's Zoom, but it's also available on the verification webpage that we have in our forms and resources. And then finally, for 5-5, you need to report the number of applications that were selected for verification, which is of course based on the 3% sample of the total number you received, the total number of applications you received, depending on whether you were prescribed to do standard or had the option of doing alternate 1, that 3% value is what you should report, or 3% of the applications you received, and approved is what you should report in question 5-5. So continuing with section 5, question 5-6 is a box every school should mark. It is really, really rare and would be unlikely that a school would conduct direct verification. No schools need to do that because of our very robust and reliable direct certification system. So marking the box in 5-6 should gray out 5-7. You should not have any values marked in 5-7. You would do direct verification only if you reached out to DHHS to get information to see if a student participates in SNAP, for example. But again, our direct certification system is really good. So there is almost no need for schools to utilize direct verification. So you're reporting the results of your effort to complete verification of applications approved for free or reduced price meals in section 5-8. So this is again where you report the results of that. You're going to read very carefully the questions 1-4, as well as the sections identified in the columns. Remember that the small or lowercase a columns in each of those 3 sections should represent the number of applications that you selected for verification and the result of what happened through that verification process. And then the small letter or lowercase b, which within each of those 3 vertical sections should represent the number of students who are reflected in each of those applications selected for verification. So again, spend some time here, read this carefully, look at it closely to make sure you're recording and reporting correct values in each of those applicable boxes. So applications verified for cause might be something that some schools need to report on because it was done, right? Those applications verified for cause are not included in the 3% random sample that's required to conduct that annual verification process. So this would be in addition to the number of applications you reported in question 5-5. Okay, and the results of this verification for cause would also be reported above in section 5-5 here. So all of those that were required to be verified because they were part of the random 3% sample, as well as any additional applications you verified for cause, would need to be reported in section 5-8. So avoid an error, do some double checking with your math. The value you record in 5-5 must equal the total applications you record in the lowercase a sections of 5-8, which I have the purple boxes around, plus the value you record in verified for cause VC-1 at the bottom of that section. Now is some time to ask your questions. So Megan, if you feel up to it, give a quick review of the chat, and I will happily help answer those.
Okay, it looks like there's just one question, and it's if you have a CEP school where students were not included in the verification, do you still include them in A and B numbers for section 1 reporting? Our software system report does not include them.
I gotta read it sometimes. You reading it to me helps me, but honestly, where students are not included in verification, do I still include them in the B numbers? For CEP schools where, no, you're not going to record any students enrolled in a CEP school in any of the sections of the verification report. You are not required to do direct certification matching like with SNAP or Medicaid programs for students in those buildings to receive the no-cost meals, so that individual student eligibility doesn't need to be reported in the verification report. This is like a side note, but because you asked this question, I'm going to mention it. We are required to report the total number of SNAP student matches who attend CEP buildings in Nebraska, because it gets compared to the total number of SNAP matched children in Nebraska for a separate FNS report. We don't have a reporting mechanism or collection mechanism for that, other than me just emailing you and asking you, how many SNAP matched students do you have in your CEP buildings, like school A, B, and C? And so that's how I aggregate that information. I don't want you to include it in the verification report, because I inevitably would also have to email you back to ask you how many of those attend the CEP schools. So students enrolled in CEP buildings should not be included in any of the values you report in the verification report. Hopefully that answers your question, Julie. Your software system report does not include them? Right, and that's good. Yeah, seems like a good thing based on my answer. Yeah, if I've misunderstood, Julie, let me know. Glad you did.
Else has any questions, feel free to unmute.
Here, I will put the link to the error-prone income chart just in case that helps you, but most of you have completed verification by now, I'm sure, and you have accessed how to determine, or I'm sorry, accessed that chart to determine which applications would be identified as error-prone. I'll just put Megan, and here's Megan's email address if you need to request the extension in order to have an additional month to complete the verification report. And your new deadline then would be December 17th, or any time before that. You can reach out to Megan and or me, and you'll know you've been approved for the additional month with an email confirmation from us acknowledging your request. So please let us know if you need additional time. Oh, did I spell it wrong? Correct one? Oh,
No,
Meg.
you just did Megan.
Have I been emailing
Easy
Megan this
mistake.
time? I'm just kidding. My apologies, everyone. Forgot you had the shortened name in your email. Okay, well, slide deck. Yes, we will make sure we put the slide deck up when we send an email that has a link to the recording. So we'll send both to you, the slides from today and the training recording too. Thank you for asking and making sure we communicated that. No more questions today, it sounds like. And if you encounter any issues or think of questions you have later, you know how to get a hold of us. It's Meg, not Megan Peel, and Katie Parch. So reach out to us anytime. We're happy to help you. We'll send the recording and the slide deck from today by Monday. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of the week. Thank you.